So there's a policy I want to talk about real quick, real quick before voting starts. So a big issue in elections has been fake populism. We all want actual populism. Who doesn't? But neither party is willing to give it to us. Unfortunately, some people can talk populist real smooth, and because of lack of political literacy, people end up voting against their interests when they're shown these mirages and scammers. Bernie was not a mirage; he was very real, but that is why they rat fucked him. Anyway, so the policy is called no tax on tips, which was inspired by Donald Trump's deep feelings of empathy for a waitress once. He seemed very, very concerned about her finances. So he announced the policy and assured his crowd that it would make lots of hotel and service workers very happy. So I'm going to explain why it won't. In yet another ill-advised move, Kamala announced support for the same policy. However, she pledged to nix taxes on tips and raise the minimum wage. Now that's very important. The minimum wage has been $7.25 an hour since 2009. The tipped minimum wage hasn't changed since 1991. Workers need this. This constitutes real change for them and their families. This is a real populist move. This is something worth voting for. The other shit isn't. It's window dressing. Raising minimum wage is that's the real deal. So the agreement on policy between the two candidates is a reflection of another commonality, which is wanting Nevada's electoral votes. So Nevada has the nation's largest concentration of service industry jobs, and the National Restaurant Association, which is the NRA for restaurants, is backing no tax on tips. Not a red flag. They have also supported not raising minimum wage or giving workers sick leave in the past, but they do want this. And this is likely why we're seeing proposals in the House for similar statewide policies. The GOP has actually made no tax on tips part of their official platform, so you know it sucks. So this policy is just straight up crony capitalism. And it's a ploy directed at voters that's meant to create the illusion of populism. Policies like these tend to get thrown at workers so that lawmakers can justify keeping wages low and benefits non-existent. Lawmakers and business owners like to use these kind of straw man policies to fuck us. Just like we're a beautiful waitress and they are a rich businessman demonstrating their value as per the dentist system. So here's why no tax on tips is a bunch of nothing. So only 2.5% of workers are in tip-earning jobs. So that does fuck all for 97.5% of workers. It creates an imbalance in tax equity, and that's inequitable. That's a difference of tax rate across a single income bracket. Though I would say it's more messed up that we have such inequity in upward tax brackets. But anyway, so as for tipped workers, because tipped jobs pay so badly, a third of them are exempt from income tax in the first place. And for those who aren't tax exempt, tax cuts will be greater for the higher earners. Higher income equals higher tax rate equals bigger exemption. However, workers who pay tax on tips who are considered low to middle income, they benefit from earned income tax credit as well as the child tax credit. So reducing their income tax by the omission of tips is going to also reduce the tax credit benefits they receive. So, in the event that tax cuts applied to both income and payroll tax, many employees would get a deduction based on the payroll tax. But payroll taxes are what fund Social Security, Medicare, and unemployment. So this would cut into benefits that everybody eventually needs. So this creates inequity in that only a certain demographic of service workers are experiencing harm to these essential funds. So according to Budget Lab at Yale, less than 3% of families would see any benefit from this. And said benefit would be lowest for those who earn the least. Abdallah Fayed of Vox said it best: workers don't need a tax cut, they need a raise. So, another issue, employees who hire workers who are paid in tips are untethered by regular minimum wage requirements. The federal basic minimum wage for these workers is only $2.13 an hour, based on the premise that with tips, their income will average out to be about $7.25 an hour, which is the actual minimum wage. So this policy might lead to more businesses adopting the tip pay model. The tax break for the tipped workers will simply make it easier for businesses to stagnate wages if there's a perception that earnings have increased because of a taxation policy. So no tax on tips is being branded as this altruistic gift for workers. I mean, maybe if you consider somebody giving you their dick in a box as a gift, then maybe, fine, yeah, have a ball. But it's not useful for workers. It may be very useful for restaurateurs, and it's definitely useful for the establishment. It's a convenient cop-out to any real change. No need for an overdue raise in wages or parental leave or wealth taxes because the executive branch already did a lovely thing for you. Be grateful, working people. But it actually gets worse. So making one form of income preferable in this fashion creates an incentive to find loopholes for tax evasion. Who would this help most? The people who have the largest sums of money to not include in their taxes. Kamala's proposal includes income brackets intended to make the policy work for working class people and to prevent abuse from the likes of hedge fund managers and lawyers. I'd like to have faith in this, but my policy with the Democrats is that I will believe it when I see it. Trump's does not have these safeguards, nor does Ted Cruz's bill, which the Center for American Progress has characterized as opening the door to tax abuse for the wealthy. That sounds like Ted. So what we're talking about is the ease by which higher earning people can creatively reclassify income as tips. The key feature of a tip is that it's a fee that has no pre-negotiated value between the client and the professional. I don't know how the IRS can enforce this with any efficacy. Can you? So that's all. Wealthy people can render their income tax exempt simply by reclassifying and declaring it as a tip. It's like tax evasion Disneyland, which is just Disneyland, actually. Well, I anticipate that the administration that implements this federally will reassure us, the simple folk, that the prosperity of our meritocratic superiors will trickle down to us in time. I'm sure they will rain it upon us in nickels and pennies from big empty water jugs. So we will have to suffer for our bubblegum and beer allowance, but more welts from coins in the face just means that the godly hand of unregulated capitalism loves us more. Just not as much as Brazil or Denmark love their children.